This is something a little bit special. Not only is this the new Iflight Nazgul Evoque version 2, but it is also the O3 version. It is fitted with DJI's latest OcuSync 3 digital FPV system, and today what I'm going to be doing is giving you my thoughts on this aircraft. We're going to unbox it, I'm going to walk you through its features, its specifications and its capabilities, and then at the end I'm going to share with you some thoughts on the aircraft itself. Now, just before we get into it, I just want to say iFlight have sent me this for free. However, they have not seen this video before it's been published, and as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. There is a lot to discuss in this video, not only with this aircraft, but with the O3 system as well. So let's get on with it and let's take a look at what this is all about. Okay, so to jump in, now I'm not going to do a full unboxing, but I just wanted to show you how it comes packaged, because all of iFlight's ready-to-fly drones do come really nicely set up. You get the box, you open the lid, and you'll find the accessories inside. We have the instruction manuals for various parts of it, including that DJI FPV air unit module. We've got some antennas, we have props, we have some additional straps as well as battery holders. We have some parts for the air unit we'll talk about later. We've got a nut and bolt for our GoPro mount, and then the drone comes nicely held in place in this foam packaging at the bottom, and you can then simply lift it out and get it out ready to use. So, as I've said, we have the new iFlight Nazgul Evoque F5D version 2. This has the new DJI digital FPV system called O3 built in as standard. That is not the original FPV system. This is the brand new one, which also works with the DJI goggles too. Now, this frame has been customized for use with that O3 system. For instance, it has a newly designed front end, which has the O3 camera in the middle. It offers vibration isolation, and it has a new CNC front plate area that can offer up to 155 degrees wide angle field of view for the camera. At the back of the frame, there has also been changes as well to accommodate the air unit, and there's actually a cutout below where iFlight have created a custom plate for the O3 air unit, offering additional cooling, helping with stability in flight. As a result of it being O3, we have our two antennas on the back there. They are on pigtails, and the connections for these are as they should be, which are RPSMA, and in the pack they include two antennas as standard. The model that they've sent me here is the Crossfire edition, and you can see that we have the custom Crossfire antenna there from iFlight as well, but it is available in other versions too. The frame on this is available as either a quad or a dead cat, and it also comes with the 3D printed GoPro mount on the front, as well as some mounts on the bottom to protect the arms. Now, as this is a Nazgul, it has all of the features we've come to expect from that fantastic drone that we've seen in the past. For instance, it has the Zing 2 2207 motors. It has that really nice build quality of the quad. Everything is really well packaged. They have this protection plastic all over the sides, protecting the electronics. We have the integrated XT60 battery connector here, and this one has been upgraded to include anti-spark as well for additional protection, and you also have that built-in LED functionality in the arms as well as underneath and on the sides as well. Now, before we jump in and take a closer look at the actual O3 air unit and the specification of the flight hardware on board, I do just want to touch a bit on the build quality and feel of this quad. The Evoque is one of the best built FPV quads I have seen on the market. Frankly, this is what an off-the-shelf proper FPV quad should be like. They have really done a lot to make this as bomb-proof as possible, and whilst it will always be able to get damaged, it's really nice to see them take the build quality to the next level. You have that protection for the motor wires down here. You have those plastic plates on the side that just keep everything enclosed and protected, and iFlight really are smashing it out the park with regards to how well they're building these quads today. Now, as I've mentioned, this is the O3 version, and you can see that new DJI air unit is sandwiched there in the back. On this side of it, you can see we have the SD card slot as well as the USB-C port, and if I flip the quad over, on this side you can see the other part as well as the bind button. Now, on the front, for the camera, they've integrated some TPU mounts as part of the fitment. If you see here, you've got the O3 camera with 2 screws, one on either side. They offer adjustable tilt on the camera, but you also can see that it offers some additional vibration isolation as well for it, and that's going to be needed because this ear unit has that built-in ability to not only record 4K HD video, but it also has image stabilization built in as well and records gyro data, which is compatible with the likes of GyroFlow. Just lifting the lid, we can now see all of the electronics inside. If we start at the back, we have our battery connector, and then attached to the negative terminal with this little wire that goes up to the positive in the XT60 is our spark arrestor device. That actually goes between the negative battery terminal and the ESC, and you can see the module covered in heat wrap there, has this board area in the middle, and then you just have this little wire that goes through, and this is sitting on top of that DJI O3 ear unit at the back. We then have our flight controller, which is their Blitz Mini F7 series, as well as their Blitz Mini 55 amp ESC located down there. Then at the front, you can see that there's a I/O board located down here with also a buzzer on board too. Below that is the receiver located at the front down there, and then you can see all the wiring for that built-in LED system that is part of the side plates, as well as the LEDs that head off underneath, and that's all controlled via that additional board there at the front. When you look inside, everything is really tightly packed, but it's hard not to say that they haven't done a nice job with the overall packaging. You can see everything in there. You can also actually see the O3 wire for the display just located down there. That is going round, and what's actually interesting on this is it's a braided cable from the looks of it for that wire that is heading off there to the camera down the front. I'm not sure if that's the same cable that comes with the O3 camera as standard. We'll have to see on the standalone ones. However, you can see that. We've then got our antenna connection here from our receiver, which goes all the way up to the back too, and then just the additional wiring with this big lump of wiring down here with that additional board that's in there for the LED and buzzer function. We can then see that the access to this flight controller is fairly limited in the sense of you simply then have a USB-C port that's located on the side over here for your access. Now, as I mentioned, the flight controller is the Blitz Mini F7. This features the BMI 270 gyro, STM32 F722 SoC, 16 megabytes of black box flash, supports I2C, so it can do GPS if you want it to, and compass, has 6 UARTs, OSD chip, supports smart audio, IRC tramp, all of the usual stuff, and it really is a very feature-packed flight controller considering that it is a 20 by 20 mounting. It also then, as I mentioned, has that Blitz Mini 55 amp ESC, which can support 60 amps burst or to a total current rating of 100, and that's all mounted in the quad with actual lock nuts as well. So again, that overall build quality is very, very good. Just to show you some of that customization that Iflight have done, this is that DJI O3 ear unit with that custom bottom plate from Iflight. It has this integrated heatsink as standard, which should offer better performance on the O3 ear unit in standby when it's sitting down on the deck ready to take off, but also should offer some additional stability in flight. And they've actually customized the frame with that popping through the bottom as I showed earlier, and it's just nice to see how far Iflight have gone with their customization to make this the best possible drone. Now, just to demonstrate this heatsink with my thermal camera, here you can see it is clearly helping to dissipate heat. You can see with the fins stick through into the bottom part of the frame, and it's clear to see that it is helping with the thermal management of the ear unit, and it's a real nice addition that Iflight have added to this quad. Okay, now just giving you a quick look at the DJI camera in the O3 system. Now, width-wise, it's 20mm or just under 19.9 basically. And height-wise, it's showing about 19mm at the back, but it is higher at the front simply because of these rounded areas that stick out of the top. And you can then see that at the top and bottom, we've got this bit that sticks out there. And then we've got the camera cable that comes out of the back. Okay, I've removed the camera from the frame for a closer look. You can see we've got our lens. We've then got the hood over the top. So if I just show there, you can see that sticking out. And at the top, the little bumps for the hood show on the top and bottom as well. As I've said, size-wise for the camera is 20 by 20, and it should fit in any standard frame mounts that accept that. If we move around to the back, you can see there's a DJI logo, and then our braided cable comes in from our ear unit into this little area down here. On the side, you can then see our 2 mounting points, as well as a screw here. And then on the other side, exactly the same with a screw here. These screws seem to hold on this back C-shaped shell, which is on the back of the camera. So what we'll do is we'll pop them out and just take a closer look, just showing you what it allows us to do. I suspect it means we can actually change the cable, but let's pop them out and take a look. Okay, withdrawing that back reveals inside our cable going onto the camera connection down here. And what's actually interesting is if you look, there is actually some heatsink compound that goes to the back of the camera shell. So it's actually transferring heat back from that sensor to the main shell, ensuring that you're getting good heat transfer over the whole back of the camera area. What is good is that this means that you will be able to replace the cable. It does look like it's in a sealed rubber grommet. I don't know if DJI are going to make different back panels available or we're going to see modification, but it is clear that you can replace the cable on this unit, even though it might take a little bit of work. So the quad is built up, ready to fly. I've got the props mounted out at the front, in at the back. We've got the antennas on. Just a quick note on there. Mine weren't fully tightening down, and it was actually bottoming out before the antenna was tight. I had to just tighten down the nuts on the TPU mount a little bit to allow the antennas to go all the way on. You can tell if you can't rotate them, they are fine. But if you do find yours rotate a little bit, just tighten those nuts a bit, and it will make sure that your antennas are on perfectly. I've also added now the grip strip for the battery in the middle. This is the 6S model, so we're going to be flying this with 1300 milliamp hour packs. Now, before I go flying, this is probably a good time to talk about the new DJI O3 digital FPV system. This is their newest upgraded version of the original system that we've seen in the past. It is an all-new ear unit and an all-new camera. As of today, the ear units and cameras are only available from DJI. There are no third-party cameras available for this system at the moment. The O3 new ear unit works with the new DJI Goggles 2 as well as the original DJI Goggles version 2. This system still has built-in support for using it with a DJI remote controller, but it doesn't work with that original black DJI FPV controller. It now works with this, the same remote that we saw on the FPV Drone and the same remote that is for the Avata. That allows you to use it with the built-in S-Bus, but predominantly people will use it with their own remote control system. The O3 system itself supports up to 50 megabits mode, just like we've seen on the last system. DJI specified the range in FCC at 10 kilometers, in CE 2 kilometers, as well as 6 kilometers in SRRC. Now, as I mentioned, this system is compatible with both the Goggles 2 as well as the Goggles version 2, but there are some differences in its performance. For instance, when using it with the Goggles 2, you get 1080p resolution. At 100 frames a second, you get approximately 30 milliseconds of latency, and on the 60 frames a second, you get approximately 40 milliseconds of latency. So the low latency mode, 30 milliseconds, the normal latency mode, 40 milliseconds. However, if you're using the O3 with the DJI Goggles version 2, you don't get 1080p resolution, you now get 810p. In low latency mode at 120 frames a second, the latency is 28 milliseconds, actually a little bit faster than using it with the Goggles 2. And in normal latency mode, 60 frames a second, you get 40 milliseconds of latency, about the same on both sets of goggles. Now, camera-wise, this ear unit is fitted with an all-new camera with a 1/1.7-inch sensor with an equivalent megapixel of 48. It has a 155-degree field of view, and it has a focal length of 2.34mm, a f2.8 aperture, fixed focus, and they say the shooting range is 0.6 meter to infinity with an equivalent focal length of 12.6 mil. Now, this camera, when coupled to that new O3 air unit, is going to give you some interesting capabilities that we've not had in the past, including the ability now to record with image stabilization on the air unit, just like the DJI Avata. In fact, many of the specifications of this air unit are the same as the Avata, so you can record 4K 50 or 60 frames a second, 2.7K 50, 60, 100 or 120 frames a second, 1080p 50, 60, 100 or 120 frames a second. Depending on what goggles you're using will depend on if you have the 100 frames a second mode available or the 120 frames a second mode. For instance, using goggles 2, you have the 100 frames a second. Using the goggles V2, you have the 120 frames a second. As I've said, it supports rock steady image stabilization, but you can also record that gyro data as well, just like you can on the Avata in wide mode, to be able to use it with the likes of gyroflow. And it does have other color modes available on the camera as well, so it supports D-Cine-like if you want to be able to do some additional grading. Now, something else to mention on latency on this system is that it is quite different with regards to how you select it. On the original DJI FPV system, you could select low latency mode or normal, whereas on the O3, you can't as of today. Currently, the latency mode is dictated by the recording resolution of the camera. So, for instance, as I understand it right now, you can only have low latency mode when the camera is set to 100 frames a second recording modes. That's either only 100 frames a second in 2.7K or 100 frames a second in 1080p. When you are using it in all of the other modes, 4K 60, any of the other 60, 50 modes, you are getting the normal latency, and the only way you're going to get the low latency is by shifting into either 2.7K 100 or 1080p 100, and that does restrict what recording modes you can use if you want that low latency mode. Now, when you get your new Nazgul Evoque, I strongly suggest you make sure that it's got the latest and correct settings on board. By this, I don't mean Betaflight, I mean the actual configuration of Betaflight for your specific model. Iflight have their own GitHub server which you can connect to via the Betaflight preset system, and you can make sure that you have the very latest and updated settings for your aircraft. And what I'm going to do next is just quickly walk you through doing that. So once you have Betaflight configurator open, you are going to want to connect your Nazgul, allow it to connect to the configurator and open, and go into the presets tab. Now, at the point of me making this video, the presets for these are not part of the official Betaflight sources. What you'll need to actually do is add a source for the Iflight GitHub. To do this, you go up into this area here in the top right corner, which says preset sources, and you're going to need to create one for Iflight. You can see at the moment, we have Betaflight official presets, Betaflight preset GitHub backup, and I have one for Iflight, which you can see here. This is the one that you're going to need to add. So yours will look like this here. What you'll need to do is click add new source, and you're going to need to paste in the URL that I have put in the description. Then you will need to put in the GitHub branch. Again, I have put this in the description, but it's basically Iflight Factory. And then you're going to click Make Active, click OK down here. That will then add the Iflight GitHub sources to the lookup in the presets. We're then going to go over to here and select BNF for bind and fly, and now you can see all of the Iflight presets have appeared over here. You can see we've got Nazgul, and the one that we're going to choose for this aircraft at this moment in time is the Nazgul F5 version 2 RC1. This may change its name in the future once it gets to release. At the moment of me making this video, it is called the V2 RC1, but it will change as that becomes correct as time goes on. Next, what we're going to do is select the correct options for my build of aircraft. If we go into here, you can see it has the main one selected at the top. You're going to need to make sure you have your receiver type set. For me, I'm using Crossfire, so we have this option here, which is CRSF stroke ELRS. If you were using the DJI S-Bus receiver built into O3, you would unselect that and select the next one down. However, for me, it's the top one. This one is a HD DJI VTX, so we're going to need to select that one as well. As for the other options, I don't have GPS. We don't have GPS rescue as a result. We're not using 48 kilohertz PWM, and everything else can pretty much stay the same, so I'm okay. Then, once we're happy that we've got everything selected, we would then click Pick. Once that's complete, you've then got the main iFlight preset and configuration installed. What I would do is just give it a look over. There are some things you will need to do. You want to configure your OSD setup for what you want, because iFlight will have their own default configuration, and you want to make sure that the mode options and you've got everything else set up the way you like it as well. So for instance, you've got your mode switch where you want it, your beeper, your turtle mode, and all of the other little features. And what I would also do is just double check some things such as the failsafe settings by going into the expert mode and just make sure that you do have it set like you'd like. So for instance, whether you want it to just fall out the sky or land, no GPS, so it won't return to home, and any other configuration options that you may wish to choose. Now at this point, I would usually move into flight footage, share with you some thoughts on the new O3 system, compare it to other systems, talk about the good and bad, but if I do that today, this video is probably going to be close to an hour long. So what I'm going to do next is share with you my thoughts on this aircraft, and I'm going to separate the O3 element into a separate video where we will be talking about that system compared to other systems, the improvements, the plus points, the downsides. So if you're interested in seeing that, please do make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Before I share with you my thoughts on the new Nazgul Evoque version 2 though, I just want to make sure you are aware that I was sent this drone for free. I have not been paid to make this video, and as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. Now, the new Nazgul Evoque version 2 is frankly fantastic. I cannot really think of a single thing I don't like about it, and iFlight really are setting the standard with regards to off-the-shelf, ready-to-fly, proper FPV drones. The build quality is outstanding, the design is good, they have that customization for the O3 system with that built-in heatsink, the cutout in the bottom of the frame, as well as the changes up front for the camera. We have an aircraft with high quality components, the Zing 2 motors, their flight stack, and really there is not a single thing I can complain about. Other manufacturers really could look at what these guys are doing, because I really don't see how you could make an off-the-shelf ready-to-fly drone better than this, and iFlight really are smashing it out of the park with regards to this. As for how it flies, it's just perfect. In my opinion, it is almost, if not as good as Chris Ross's AOS version 2 build from iFlight, again using basically identical components, and what we have here is a frame that just offers fantastic performance, great specifications, and whilst it is going to be expensive because of this O3 build, I don't think you're going to find a better off-the-shelf ready-to-fly FPV quad out there. If you didn't want to get this quad with O3, iFlight do have a number of other builds available as well, and the great thing is you're able to customize them with your receiver choice, your video system choice as well. So if you don't want to go digital, you could even get this aircraft in an analog build too. At the point of me making this video, I don't know a price, but I will put a link to it in the description. Overall, it simply is one of the best quads I have had on the bench, and it just does exactly what you need it to do. Now, again, I want to say a massive thank you to iFlight for sending this one over to us. As I've said, they did send it for free. However, we would not have been able to have access to the O3 system without their support. And I just want to say from me personally how much that has supported the channel, and a big thank you from me. I am really interested in your thoughts on this quad. Please put them in the comment section. If you've got any questions, I will try and answer them as soon as I can. As I've said, the O3 element is going to come in a separate video in the near future, and if you want to make sure you see that, please do make sure you are subscribed, and don't forget to hit the little bell next to it as well. Finally, before we wrap this one up, I just want to say, if you like what we do, please consider checking out the links in the description to my Patreon, as well as Buy Me a Coffee. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my patrons for the support they give me on this channel. I would not be able to keep making video without their support. And if you would like to support us, please do consider checking out the link in the description. Now, before you go, I just want to say I do have a number of other videos on the O3 system. We have an FCC hack video, we have a teardown video, and if you're interested in seeing them, please do check them out. They're in the channel, in the playlist for this video as well, and I'll pop one of them up at the end for you too. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe. I'll speak to you soon.